Hello, everyone. Hello, good evening to our viewers. Good evening to Semih and Hila from Istanbul and Tel Aviv. Hila, Tel Aviv. Yes, and also me close to Tel Aviv, give a time in this evening. And I'm really happy that we're having this event. I'll start by just presenting the organization and what we do, and then we're going to start the Facebook Live event. So my name is Arik, and I'm representing and working for the Turkish-Israeli Civil Society Forum. Turkish-Israeli Civil Society Forum was established about 10 years ago as a response to the need to create more cooperation between the civil societies in Israel and in Turkey. What we found was that the organizations and many individuals who wanted to cooperate but didn't know how. I mean, we found a lot of things in common between people in both countries, and we said, okay, we are going to take the responsibility to connect the people and the organizations. And this is what we've been doing since in different projects, different activities, in seminars, in online campaigns, through our Facebook page, through our Twitter page, and through Facebook Live events. And this is what brings me to tonight's event. And I'm really happy that, we cannot ignore the recent events happening in politics between our countries, but this is exactly the reason why we have this event, because we know that we have the potential to learn from each other as people and as organizations. And this is why it's important to have this event. So let's begin and talk about impact. But first, let's hear from Semih and Hila. So Hila, maybe just introduce yourself to a little bit about your background and your work.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for inviting us. And this is a great company and platform to speak about our work that is very impactful. So I hope everyone is going to enjoy this session. So my name is Hila. I work as a senior project manager at the Israeli Forum for Impact Economy. Before that, I worked in venture philanthropy in Israel and also in the government side, and get a lot of perspective about impact investing in Israel and the global market. And to just say a little bit about the Israeli Forum for Impact Economy, we are a not-for-profit entity with the inspiration to become an umbrella organization that connects, convenes, and catalyzes multi-stakeholder partnerships and collaborations to bridge the Israeli impact ecosystem and various national and international players with the private, public, and social sectors. We are committed to raise the significance of impact investing and economy in Israel. We address market challenges and foster innovation to tackle societal and environmental problems to produce economic value and sustainable economic growth. The Israeli Forum for Impact Economy is the Israeli National Advisory Board to the GSG, which is a global organization that promotes impact economy and entrepreneurship global-wide. And we work in 5 verticals. First one is policy. We also work with the vertical of supply of capital, demand for capital, raising awareness, and impact management and measurement tools. That's pretty much about us.
Thank you, Hila. Semih, what about Impact Hub in Istanbul and about yourself? Tell us.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's an honor to be here. I'm co-founder of Impact Hub Istanbul. Actually, as Impact Hub Istanbul, we are part of the Global Impact Hub Network, which is a global network for impact-driven individuals and change makers, and it has centers in more than 100 locations around the world. Impact Hub brings together change makers and empowers them through different tools. It provides a co-working space for impact-driven individuals, social entrepreneurs, and individuals from other disciplines and also supports them with various tools and content, and also it provides a community for them to grow their impact. So we joined the global networking and open doors in 2016, and what we do is that we create a community of change makers, and we support them with different kind of programs, and social entrepreneurs are a big part of our community, and we organize early stage, later stage, and thematic incubation and acceleration programs for them. We also support different kind of, let's say, civil society organizations, activists, or freelancers in different kind of work they do. And we have, like, we do a lot of programs with actually private sector, public sector, and also development organizations. And these programs focus on variety of sectors in general. One area that we focus a lot is, as I mentioned, incubation and acceleration for social entrepreneurs and impact entrepreneurs. The other area is that, like, we focus on partnership building between public sector, private sector, CS, civil society organizations, and social enterprises. I mean, partnerships that support the sustainable development goals, and we facilitate that interaction. And another area that we focus is also the youth, to increase their skill sets, abilities, and competences to tackle social and environmental problems, and to raise awareness for them towards social entrepreneurship and social innovation. I can start with a summary like that, and we can elaborate in the questions.
Thank you. But you know what? Let's take a step back and take the word which is common for both of the organizations, impact. What does impact mean? I mean, for different industries, for different perhaps countries, impact has a different meaning. Tell us what, according to your organization or according to your industry, what is the meaning of impact? Semih, let's start with you.
Okay, sure. It's a great question. I think I can share maybe a personal view and then organizational view. Personally, I think impact can change for, like, every individual. I think impact is a bit like it's related a lot with where you have meaning in your life, you know, like what's meaningful for you to change. And I think in a sense it's very personal for everyone, but also in a sense, like, there is a need to standardize the impact, what we mean by impact. So I think that's that will always be the case, you know, like we need measurement tools, like we need tools like that to, you know, like mobilize resources and so on. But at the same time, I think it's like everyone can choose to have, like, a different kind of impact in their lives, especially in the social impact scene, because there are as much as variety in social and environmental problems, there will be, like, different kind of ways of making an impact in the world, in my opinion. But as an organization, both globally and locally, for us, sustainable development goals, like, we accept it as a lens to view our impact in the world, because I think it's a great tool for helping individuals and organizations look at the same way in terms of impact, especially with the future outlook. So we use the SDGs as a lens through which to view our impact in the world as a network. I think impact also is a lot about taking a holistic view. I think sustainable development goals also show that. So social problems are interconnected, and I think it's related a lot with thinking of the externalities of our activities. Like, this can be positive externalities, negative externalities, but I think the biggest problem of the world is just a lack of looking into the negative externalities of our activities. And maybe one final comment about impact, like, we work a lot with social entrepreneurs, and when it comes to social entrepreneurship, I think the impact focus changes across organizations a bit. You know, like maybe on one end of the spectrum, we have the NGOs like with maybe full like impact focus, and on the other spectrum, like we have the traditional companies maybe with no impact focus. But there are a lot of different organizational types in the middle, and I think like social enterprise is a very dynamic model in like tech, achieving impact in a sustainable way. But there are also different kind of organizations. I think, you know, like there are maybe corporations with CSR activities that are also creating impact, corporations with SDG partnerships also creating impact. So I think each organization has a way to approach it and create hopefully positive impact, you know, like in the globe.
Positive impact in the globe. Hila, what do you think? What is impact for you and for your organization?
Well, first of all, personally, I completely connect with what Semih said. I feel like personally it really lies on values and meanings that we encompass and how we manage it internally and personally and externally. And as far as the organization, when we speak about impact, we usually use the very simple and clear definition the impact management project uses, where impact is a change in a positive or a negative outcome on people or the planet. When we speak about impact, usually we refer to the positive impact, but we need to remember that negative impact also occurs in many cases. And we're here to address how either to minimize it or to drive the positive impact. So it is important to know that in order to better navigate the complexities of all this issue, to achieve a future that is equitable, where no one lives in poverty, and on the other hand, making strides to minimize negative environmental effects, we need to simply unify some principle. That is the role of all actors and sectors in society, to examine how our actions affect people and the planet. So actually in the IFIE, the Israeli Forum, we zoomed out and we also see how we focus on impact economy. So how can we deliver social, environmental, and economic value to produce a sustainable economic growth? So in an impact economy, it's practically a just and equitable economic system where positive impact can be produced in an environment of risk and return. So we see how governments, how NGOs, how investors, how consumers are motivated to include maybe marginalized or underserved sectors of society, while giving consideration to the needs of our planet and environment. So when we connect impact and maybe business, and we look into impact investing, we see a lot of intentionality in impact, where we want to have, in addition to a financial return, also a social and environmental return. So we really see the double bottom line approach, where organizations or companies can either scale between avoid harm to their stakeholders, which is we see as the minimum they can do, and beyond that to see how actively they can avoid harm, like business companies that are really looking at their external change and environment on people and the planet. And also we feel like the last end of the spectrum is really to be intentional about it. So there are companies that do so. There is Orcam, there is iControl, which is, for example, medical assistive technology companies that on one hand have businesses, but on the other hand, they harness tech-based solutions to help blind and visually impaired communities. So it's really down to that. And I think usually when we speak about impact investing in all the different models, in the bottom line, we also need to see how we as individuals, as people in the society, can minimize our negative impact and increase our positive impact, maybe in our surrounding, maybe in the people that we engage with, maybe in the companies that we buy from, maybe in the investments that we do. So there are a lot of ways how we as individuals can operate, but also organizations in the world.
I have to say this was very interesting for me. I had a totally different idea of impact, and what is really interesting for me, maybe the two main conclusions I can draw from so far is, first of all, the concept of negative impact, which we should address and minimize, and you both spoke about that. And secondly is that basically all actors, doesn't have to be a social entrepreneurship, doesn't have to be social enterprise, it can be just for-profit companies, can be individuals. Each of us has a way to address impact, and this is very interesting for me. I wasn't aware of it. Let's talk about what is happening right now, Hila, in Israel, the impact ecosystem or the industry, or however you may define it. What is happening? What changed? I mean, I think in my view, in the past few years, there's been a lot of hype around it, but you know much better than me. Tell us what is happening right now, and feel free to use examples.
Thank you. So I think that before talking about the specific impact ecosystem, I really want to highlight the tech ecosystem, which is pretty much connected to it. So Israel is really a hotbed of innovation and technology that offers a massive value to the global ecosystem. So we have in Israel over 6,000 startups, over 500 R&D centers of multinational corporations that represent 35 countries. We also have 70 unicorns, which is pretty interesting to see, you know, in parallel to other countries in Europe. What was interesting to find is that out of the 6,000 and more startups, actually Startup Nation Central, it's an organization, a very interesting organization in Israel that uses what's called the Startup Finder, which is a great tool to examine the startup ecosystem in Israel. And they have actually examined the startups, and they found that about 2,500 startups do have a potential to be SDGs, to be aligned with the SDGs, and even more than 1,000 of them are answering the SDGs challenges. So then beyond the startups, we have today about 20 or so impact venture funds, you know, investors actually. So some of them are venture funds, some of them are family offices. Some of the Israeli ones are like Zora, Impact First Investments, Beyond, Gandil, To Be Angels, and some or also practice venture philanthropy, which is very interesting, like the Edmund de Rothschild Foundation, Arik Impact Foundation, Menamadin, and UJIA. And we also have local offices of global impact organizations, such as Social Finance Israel and Bridges. And there are also over 25 proficient incubators, accelerators, and hubs, such as 8200 Impact, Peers Challenge as part of the Global Peers Foundation, Tech for Good and Present Tense. And we also have over 15 academic programs, such in Tel Aviv University, Haifa University, and Hebrew U, which is very important because we, you know, talk a lot about the industry and the companies and the startups, but we also need to remember that there's a whole ecosystem of academics, of professionals, of intermediaries that are also engaged. And also the government is pretty committed to addressing and promotes Israel's involvement with achieving the SDGs. And actually in their latest report of policies and priorities, they stated that some of Israeli ministries, such as Ministry of Environmental Protection and Energy, will promote low carbon market and carbon taxation, and also energy efficient and consumption frameworks. And also the Ministry of Innovation and Technology will promote investments of science, technology, and innovation to springboard economic growth and social resilience, as well as human capital and high tech, which we've seen in the last year or so is pretty hectic. And also we do see as government effort a signal to the market, the importance of the matter of impact investing and to support the ecosystem in many different avenues. So that's just like a snapshot of what we have here.
It sounds huge, and it sounds, for me, there's a huge potential because there's so many companies, so many startups, and there is government support, and there is different levels of interaction between those. So it sounds really amazing. Semih, what about Istanbul or Turkey at all?
Yes, I can also give a summary and a snapshot. Actually, yeah, impact ecosystem actors, as Hila shared, like it's very diverse also in Turkey. I think it's benefited a lot from the development of the maybe kind of the traditional entrepreneurship ecosystem, which grew actually start to grow like 15 years ago, between 10 and 15 years ago, and based on that infrastructure, I think social entrepreneurship and impact entrepreneurship activity has been starting to grow around 2015, 2016, with a lot of success stories in social entrepreneurship being funded actually in those years. And then it has started to grow in number, social entrepreneurship activity. Also, like we start to have more and more like local offices of global organizations. Like we brought Impact Hub, like Ashoka, and different like accelerators, global accelerators. They all opened offices in Istanbul. There is, I think, as part of the impact ecosystem, like there is a very young population, like with average age of 30, and technology entrepreneurship in general is like a big trend among the young people. There's more than 200 universities across Turkey. I mean, I'm giving this as maybe a strong data, but like I think we should see the negative side of it as well. Like there's a huge young unemployment, and especially from the university graduates, like it's a big problem in Turkey, which is also every social problem is also a potential for impact ecosystem, in my opinion. There are a lot of government incentives also in our case, like supporting entrepreneurial activities in the form of grants and support programs, like tax advantages, insurance advantages for technology startups or young startups in general. A lot of co-working spaces and entrepreneurial communities have been opened, like particularly after 2015. The investor ecosystem, I would say, like not so strong in general. For instance, social entrepreneurs and impact entrepreneurs receive investment from the conventional venture capital or conventional angel networks. That's why the kind of ventures that startups that can receive investment in general are the technology ventures, which can show like scaling potential. Other than that, it's other than showing that the financial potential is very big, like it's hard to receive investment actually. And impact investment is yet to develop, but we know that there are funds in development that are planning to launch soon. So especially in the seed and pre-seed stage, like which is the kind of investment that we need more in Turkey. I can mean private sector is a key part of the impact ecosystem. I think more and more the private sector is moving from solely corporate social responsibility focus to more in-depth sustainable development goals related partnerships, especially with startups, impact-driven startups, and like circularity focused startups, for example, because private sector has to like make their value chains more green, and they need to make it more sustainable. As you know, there is now the European Union Green New Deal, and Turkey exports a lot to European Union, and if they don't make their value chain sustainable, they will not be able to export anymore. So I think this is also pushing a lot the private sector to think more about impact actually. Corporate venturing is also growing, like a lot of corporates are making investment in startups, acquiring startups in some cases. And maybe when it comes to Turkey, we should also say that there is in general a regional focus in multinationals, especially for the MENA region. In the near past, actually, like most of the international brands have their headquarters in Istanbul. In the last years, it moved a bit to Dubai, but some of them, but still some of them have HQ here. And civil society, I think, is always a must-have of an impact ecosystem. And yeah, there are some, like sometimes social political pressures, you know, like maybe like that's limiting the civil society. But I think I care a lot about civil society, even though we work a lot with social entrepreneurs. I think civil society's approach is unique and in the form of leave no one behind kind of approach. And so I think one of the most important things for the impact ecosystem in the future is for the civil society and social entrepreneurship mentality to work together. I think that this is kind of very important. And finally, maybe I can say, like, we have all these players, but I think the collaborative mentality in the country should develop a lot more. Like we are trying to also, you know, infuse that kind of mentality with our work.
Yes, I'm sure we have similar challenges here. But before I want to talk about a different challenge. You spoke about the environment and how the policies in the world, of course, in Europe as well, in the Middle East, are changing because of the environmental crisis. But we have other crises at the moment. We have a refugee crisis in some areas, and we have, of course, the pandemic crisis. Tell us the impact of course, the corona, the COVID-19 pandemic on your work. I mean, was it perhaps, I mean, we tend to think it might be negative, but perhaps it was positive because it was a new challenge. And in generally, how do you deal with those challenges and the world that is evolving around us? So Semih and then Hila.
Sure, thank you for the question. Yeah, like I think it affected our lives like in every sense. I think it's hard to say positive or negative, like mostly negative from a health crisis perspective, of course, but like apart from that, like the impact in some areas have been positive, some areas have been negative, in my opinion. Like I think the starting from the positive side, maybe like I think it changed the habits a lot of people towards digital, like especially for the traditional industries and traditional sectors. I think maybe this was the only way to for digitalization for them, you know. So in that sense, I think there was a positive side to it. Like when we look at our work, like it's a lot about bringing people together and empowering them. So like we had to move a lot of digital, or a lot of events, workshops, trainings, you know, like online. I think the positive side of this is that it gives you more reach, like you reach more people more easily maybe, but I think it lowers the in-depth impact that you make on the participants and the participant interaction. So there was both positive and negative on that side. I think work productivity wise, like it increased productivity, but it decreased creativity, because I think like we lost that spontaneous encounters, like where you mostly have the creative sparks, in my opinion. Like obviously company culture is affected mostly negatively, in my opinion, because like genuine connection decreases it. Like we try to create mechanisms for that, but it's like it's different, it's never the same, I think. And when it coming to the impact ecosystem, how it has been affected, I think, like for instance, when we look at the social enterprises and also NGOs, CSOs could be, civil society organizations could be included there. Like the ones that are related with technology, like let's say social tech ventures or digital models, were positively affected. Let's say if it's like a fact-checking organization, it's positively affected because like the crisis, information crisis got bigger, and you know, like their products are mostly digital and like could be done digitally, and they grew a lot, for example. And but like when you look at the grassroots model that's working a lot in the field, like they have a significant problem, especially in beginning, like to access their target groups, like to reach their target groups. I think you talked about like refugees, like Turkey. In Turkey, there are like 4 million refugees, more than 4 million refugees, and you know, like they were the people most negatively affected in general because like their solutions were less adaptable to digital, I think. On a positive note, maybe we can say, like with the COVID, you know, like the awareness level, environmental awareness levels have increased, and people are more sensitive towards such issues, and people are also protest more the lack of activity in these fields. So more funding is going to be mobilized because of that, because of those pressures. And one final thing maybe I can say, like while there are more funding, you know, like for more funding will be mobilized, private sector resources, I think, has been influenced like negatively mostly. And because of lack of resources, we see that like they try to collaborate more with entrepreneurs, because in general, entrepreneurs like use resources smartly and create smart solutions. So that it's like, ironically, it also creates that kind of positive impact, in my opinion. Yeah, these are the ones that I can share.
Thank you, Semih. Hila, have you also seen some positive changes because of the pandemic?
So first of all, I think personally, and also from our organization view, it really has become more common to work virtually. Like people really weren't used to it. They wanted the face-to-face, they wanted the handshakes. They wanted to be able to even argue in a small room where you can voice your opinion. But now everything is via screens, which in some ways is very useful. We can engage with a wider audience, and actually our yearly launch, our launch conference was actually held virtually because of COVID, and we couldn't do it physically. And we were really overwhelmed by so many people. We had more than 700 people joining us virtually from about 30 countries. And that was really amazing to see. And I don't think that would have happened if we were in a physical setting. But to take it on another level, despite the pandemic, during the pandemic, actually a lot of companies and NGOs globally, from small to enterprises, really suffered. Some didn't recuperate, and ones that were able to were very innovative and agile in the face of uncertainty. So really, this is a testament of the strength and capabilities of people behind the organizations, the people that are actually doing the work. And although Israel is one of the leading countries in the recovery, beyond the COVID crisis, Israel also suffered from political instability and market instability because of the pandemic. So a lot of startups were afraid because their runway is getting shorter and shorter, and investors were really hesitant, and the financial market was really unstable. So these are very serious and crucial challenges for everyone. But on the other hand, we did see it as an opportunity for an impact ecosystem. This is a real momentum for us that we need to harness. Just last week, the really big climate change conference, COP26, ended, where leaders and professionals and citizens came together and expressed their climate crisis awareness. We are living in a time where the ball is running, and the world is keep hitting us with challenges, and we need to face that. And today, really, many countries face internal and global societal and environmental challenges. And it has become clear to many governments that this is no longer a path that we need to go by. We need change. We need to mobilize private capital for scale, for impact investing in SDG lens. We need also to harness the social sector to really, like Semih said, no one is left behind. And I think that today the message, or really the tagline, is that we really cannot continue in the path that we operated until now. We need to set a new financial, social, environmental order and guidelines. The world and the scope of impact really enables that. We need new strategic financial mechanisms to build a more just economy. We need to engage businesses and the social sectors to really form innovative impact investments. We need to promote accountability and transparency among the business sector. And at the end of the day, these local and global challenges are also a catalyst for the impact movement.
Hila, you said something that I really like. You said it eventually is the people behind the work that manage to keep on going despite the difficulties. Do you have an example, maybe a story, something that was really unique during the last 2 years, or even before that, that you would like to share with Semih? You can think in the meanwhile about something inspirational for our viewers. Is there anything you would like to share?
Yes, and actually this is something I usually go back to in my mind when thinking about personal impact. So a few years back, I worked at the Jewish Agency as a shlicha in Ohio in the US. And I worked with students, Jewish, non-Jewish students, really to see how they can harness their capabilities to better themselves in leadership, in developing programs for their peers, and see how they connect with Israel. And initially, I planned to go for 1 year, 1 year and live abroad, work with the people, gain some international experience. And being there, I felt like I needed to stay longer to really see the fruit of my labor, to really see the impact I made on people, because this is really the initial stage. And I eventually stayed for 3 years. And at the end, I kind of guided students along their academic journey, but also personal journey to become professionals in the world. And now I see people working in NGOs and businesses and really are accountable for what they do in society. They are acknowledging their effect and also others people's effect on themselves. A lot of the times we engage with others, and we need to see how that engagement is also creating a positive impact and not a negative one.
Thank you. Semih, what about you? Any inspirational story?
I can also share. We opened our doors in 2016, and in our first year we did early stage social entrepreneurship support programs, and from the first program that we did, two of the ventures that have been through that program, they are now after 4 years past, they grow a lot and they scaled a lot, and now they invested in ventures that are in the early stage support programs in 2020, 2021. So I mean that was both invested and mentored this kind of new teams actually, and seeing this kind of impact in 4 years, which is not such a long time, seeing the outcome of your work, the teams that you supported growing and supporting the new teams. I think that's I mean, there are several stories on this topic that I have observed in the last 1 or 2 years, and this is making me very content about the work. That give back, I think, is the most valuable part of this, and yeah, that's something that I can share, and it makes me feel passionate about the work that we do.
Thank you, and let's talk about the present and the future. What is happening right now? Perhaps things you work on, development plans. What's on the agenda, Semih?
Sure. I mean, in the agenda, I think organizational challenges in our case is a lot of times related to better team management, using the team potential more effectively, because the work we do is a lot about bringing people together, making change in their personal lives, in their like in their ventures. You know, like I think it's a lot about facilitation, capacity building. So like we need to work with talent. So our team is the work that we do, actually, that they're at the core of everything. So in our case, you know, like one of the main challenges is that you know, like we are not selling a product, so like it's we always constantly we need to innovate. So staying in the forefront all the time, you know, like making significant impact with your work, but at the same time providing a good career opportunities for your team. Like this is, I think, a constant challenge that's also motivating. But there are also some kind of limitations, you know, like I mean, in the last 5 years, impact economy grew a lot, but still, you know, like it's not the same as like the traditional economy, and it's still growing. So sometimes, you know, like it's hard to pay as competitive as you pay for, let's say, like a banking industry for a, you know, like senior staff or for a very talented staff. So I think that's one of the main challenges that we have. And, you know, like we are obviously giving very different kind of growth opportunities for people, but still, like, it's also not an easy decision to, you know, like for people to, you know, like choose if they have like a financially better offer on the table. So I think that's a big problem. Another organizational challenge for us is a systemic issue, actually, because I mean, uncertainty everywhere has grown, like in the pandemic period. But I mean, in our country currently, there is like a big economic issue. Like our currency is devaluing like constantly, inflation is going up. I mean, in the last year, just more than 30% our currency devalued, and this is like creating a lot of instabilities. There's like a significant brain drain from Turkey, which is also adding, you know, like bright people, losing bright people is, especially in the kind of work we do, like normally people who could become social entrepreneurs, maybe like going for different kind of reasons. I can say that one as well. And finally, actually, one of our biggest assets is horizontal culture. You know, like we look for self-starters in our team. You know, like we really value that taking initiative kind of dimension, and that's why, you know, like we have a very horizontal culture. One opportunity and challenge is sometimes, I think, like for horizontal cultures are still, horizontal management systems are still being developed around the world. Sometimes, you know, I have the impression that management systems are not yet well developed for this kind of horizontal culture. And when it comes to scaling, you know, like it's in general a significant challenge, protecting that culture and scaling at the same time. We are currently at a phase, you know, like where we are going over like 15, 20 members, and then it's big. You need more and more structures, you know, like as you grow. I can say one of our development plans will be to create structures while also keeping this entrepreneurial and horizontal culture.
Hila, different or other challenges and developments for IFIE?
So there are some similarities, I can say. You know, everyone is really trying to stay in the forefront and really be knowledgeable and know everything, but it's very difficult to do so. But I think that we do have some two main challenges that we face that are also connected to our development plans. So first one is internally. As an umbrella organization, we are looking to serve the entire impact ecosystem, the community, and the actors in Israel, as well as provide tools for those interested or intrigued. We work formally to coordinate activities and pull resources to mitigate different actors and their work with others, and also ours, and effectively promote impact at scale for everyone. So for everyone to enjoy the fruit of our labor and the collaborations. So we do work, as I stated prior, with the social business, public, sectors, and each has their own targets, KPIs, and missions, and it's understandable. So our work is really sensitive, and it needs to cater to a wide range of organizations. And I think that externally, and maybe others would be able to relate, is that the impact industry as a whole, the particular definitions, the methodologies, the business models, the management tools are complex. And we really need to understand them in a deep way. So both in Israel and globally, to communicate those tools, methodologies, practices, whatever it is, we need time. And not a lot of people want that. Like in Israel, we live a lot in the now culture. The long-term mindset is really not well structured. We really work from one day to the other. And when startups, for example, want to go for market penetration strategy, they usually build a plan and act on it straight away. But when you talk about impact, you need to build and set the ground to have everyone to understand and be on the same page, to understand the important stuff as well as the nitty-gritty stuff, and really to create a well-based plan for the short term and the long term. And unfortunately, again, not everyone is patient, but we try to work through that. As far as our development plan, some of our work is really to expand the circle of partners and companies we work with, because we really want to see more organizations in the impact ecosystem. So a few things that we're working on is to, first of all, do some research. We plan to do research on two things that I think are really complementing each other. So one focuses on market sizing to really examine what is the amount invested in the impact spectrum, from impact first all the way to ESG and classic investments, either with intentionality or somewhat, as well as the market mapping. Who are the actors? What are the opportunities in the market, both on a local and global scale? And I think that the data and findings that we will collect would really unravel a variety of opportunities, such as to support an SDG-driven innovation ecosystem, as those hold potential for to mitigate different innovative, supportive ways across the globe. So one of those, once the innovative agenda is synchronized among the common KPIs and the ways to actually measure them, such as the SDGs, it would be easier to connect the different stakeholders to the ecosystem and create a more equal opportunity for growth for everyone. And I think that in addition to that, we really need to harness the powers of sustainable innovation paradigms. And the state of Israel also need to take a step to really see how we can transform Israel from a startup nation to an impact nation, working together with the global network, like Impact Hub, like the GSG that we're a part of, to really act on developing meaningful collaborations and connections between Israeli peers and Israeli international peers. So investor to investor connection, entrepreneur to entrepreneur connection, intermediary to intermediary, to really learn what are the different methodologies and also best practices.
You touched upon cooperation, and this is actually our final point. Hila, do you know if there's any cooperation existing at the moment between Israeli and Turkish startups or any kind of company or NGOs that in this context? And if not, do you think where does the potential lay?
So I don't know a lot about existing cooperations, and if any have any, innovative programs, I would be happy to know them and really echo them to the ecosystem. I think that, when we look at it wider, impact innovation as a whole is a multi-dimensional and broad concept. All the more reason to really refine the goals and potential each sector and also market has. So as I mentioned before, many countries suffer from local challenges that are unique for their own market. So first, I think that really creating a global effort between Israel and Turkey, both impact ecosystem and other business networks, is really important to harness the knowledge that has already been developed, and that can really, accommodate and complement each other's market. And we also saw how technology is a tool that we can gain knowledge, but also share it effectively. And we actually learned from our exploration of challenges that each player, whether it's a business entity, multinational corporation, social business, and an NGO, all face different challenges. And it's important to really share those challenges to see how we can mitigate it. Another thing I think that we can complement is the human capital part and the entrepreneurial nature in high-tech scene we have in Israel that really can complement the Turkish market. And I think also we really touched it a little bit before with Semih's comments, but I think really the proximity between both markets, it's really a good starting points for a lot of startups looking to broaden their engagement with Africa market, Middle East, in Europe, just because I've heard that Istanbul is a really financial hub. So it's really an opportunity. And I also know that there is an amazing work Safek Mudericil is doing to establish the Turkish National Advisory Board, really the equivalent of our organization in Turkey, which will navigate and address similar issues. So we wish them a lot of success and support with their efforts.
Great. Semih, you know of any cooperation or potential? What do you think? Do you agree with Hila or new ideas, other ideas?
I totally agree. By the Hila, I should meet people who are trying to establish the same initiative in Turkey. Like, would be
I'll connect you.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I mean, like, what I think is that, I mean, I think ongoing collaborations are very limited. Like, to my knowledge, like I know limited, but I think there is such a big potential because, I mean, we all get a lot of inspiration from Europe and United States, but I think the challenges of countries are much more similar. Like when we look at Israel and Turkey, like the way the business is done, like the maybe, like lack of collaboration, partnership, this kind of problems, lack of long-term view, like it's like very, very similar in Turkey. So I think like the solutions that are created in either countries, like when they are shared bilaterally, it includes like such important lessons in tackling, like social and environmental issues in our countries. So in that sense, I think, like like what you do, Arik, like this kind of, like information exchange organizations that can support that, I think should increase on like different topics, and different kind of exchanges should be done between countries. Maybe Impact Hub Tel Aviv could be created at some point. I mean, I think Impact Hubs are also a great way for like, intra-country cooperation. And I hope it comes to Tel Aviv, and maybe from our, participants, sometimes someone can lead this in the future. Why not? I think countries are complementary competences and assets. Like, in Israel, high-tech startup movement is very good. Like technology adoption is perfect. Turkey in some markets is a very big market, and it's also a gateway to other markets, like let's say agriculture and food. Like we are a big agriculture country. Like it's a big land, like with productive areas, and also we export significant products, significant export products to markets abroad. Like so why not, like this technology know-how and this market come together. In also, I think technology for good initiatives, could be created between two countries. I think one thing that we can learn a lot from Israel actually is that, as I shared, we have significant people, like number of people living country, like in terms of talent. I mean, they are living the country, but we should find a way to, benefit from their know-how. So I think Israel is a great sense in that sense, the leveraging the intellectuality of people outside the country. I think we can learn a lot of things as a country from that, because maybe it's kind of a not somewhere that we are so strong at. So I think approach should be this, what are the complementary competencies on both sides? For instance, we have similar challenges to partnership building. For instance, let's say social entrepreneurship, impact investment, policies are going to be created around these, in the government level, right, in the next years. So I think when a new policy innovation occurs, two countries can feed each other. Let's say a social entrepreneurship policy, for instance, in Turkey there are developments, but it's still not finalized. Maybe we can share our lessons with you, and you can share with us. I think those kind of policy level, civil society level exchanges are so valuable. I think first step should be to find ways for such exchange, and I'm sure concrete partnerships and collaborations on different topics will evolve from this interaction that's going to be built actually.
So we do hope and encourage you. And by the way, this is also why we do this, for you, both organizations, to work together. I mean, you have your contact information, and you can contact each other and discuss. Before we leave, there's one question from the audience. And then let's have a 1-minute response for each so we can finish on time. The question is this: is the growing impact sector in a bubble or interacting with classical startups? Social entrepreneurs are often closer to NGOs than to business-minded people. How to overcome this?
That's a great question. I mean, shall I start maybe with that?
Yes, you start, and then Hila.
I think it's hard to answer this either black or white. I think there are both upsides and downsides to it. I would like to start with the second question. It's a very important topic for me. Social entrepreneurship, being closer to NGOs or business-minded people. I think it all depends on the problem the entrepreneur is focusing on and the business model around it. Some of the models are more maybe product-based. Let's say technological solution, software solution for food waste. We have a venture like that in Turkey, which is very globally successful. I mean, when you are focusing on a product, you can have your business mind could be stronger. Your solution creates a lot of impact by making a particular process, outdated process, automated. But at the same time, you are not that much on the field, so you are not working a bit like an NGO, but another social enterprise who are working with, let's say, the local producers and helping them get better access to market with their products. So they work more with NGOs, for example. So and they adapt that kind of rice-based mentality more. So I think both are valuable. We need both of them, but maybe some will be structured as companies, some will be structured as cooperatives. Social entrepreneurs also they don't have a particular legal form. There are different legal forms. So business models differ, and their legal form differ in that sense. Regarding the question about bubble or not, I think there are some people who are using impact as a source and making greenwashing, and I think we should raise our voices to that. But also impact sector includes like a lot of groundbreaking innovations. So I think we have both types. Like with NGOs, like we also have corrupt NGOs like in the system. You know, like it's just there are goods and bads. That way of taking it.
Thank you, Hila. What do you think about the question?
I completely agree with Semih. I think that today, entrepreneurs, not to really split them to social or not social, really entrepreneur in their soul core, see that challenges, either social or environmental, are also a business opportunity. There is an organization I know personally called Sign Now that really saw how to address the challenge of hearing impaired and really develop a platform to on-demand sign language globally that they can use, but also there is a really smart business model. So the two can coexist. And I also think that people that think that impact is a bubble can really look outside their window, see the environmental impact, the climate crisis, the health crisis, and all really address impact. And companies really are starting to also shape into that. When you look at responsible investing, you see how venture capital and how the stock market is really also looking into how companies should really be responsible and also transparent with their corporate responsibility, with their environmental responsibility, and how they engage their consumers. So there is a lot to think about, and I think it's only the beginning.
Hila and Semih, I really thank you for your time and joining us and providing this insightful information. I learned a lot, and on a personal level, it sparked some ideas in my head about on how each and every one of us, no matter what we do, if we have a business or we have a startup or we work in an NGO, we can be part of this ecosystem, earn from it. So thank you again. We hope that you cooperate and work together, and good luck for both of you. Thank you to our viewers as well. We will continue with the series of the Facebook Live events next year of the Turkish Israeli Civil Studies Forum. Thanks you for the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, the Jerusalem and Istanbul branch for making this happen. And see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Arik, Hila. And
bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.